The DeWine administration and the nuclear bailout. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. It has been quiet on the HB6 scandal front lately. No new indictments or guilty pleas in months. But this week, text messages obtained by the Ohio Consumers Council showed how involved Lieutenant Governor Jon Husted was in the process of passing the law that bailed out two FirstEnergy nuclear plants. Text messages between FirstEnergy lobbyist Mike Dowling and then CEO Chuck Jones indicate Jon Husted was working to get it passed. Dowling texted, "Just had long convo with Jay Husted just now. Senate President called Jon twice during our two calls, and he called me back twice. All is well. JH is working on the 10 years. He's afraid it's going to end up being 8. Talk later." The end of the text refers to efforts to make the bailout last 10 years. It ended up being only 7 years. Then, a couple of years later, after news of the scandal broke, Jon Husted was asked if he pushed for House Bill 6. Here's the exchange between Ohio Public Radio's Andy Chow and the Lieutenant Governor.
How would you describe your role when HB6 was in the committee process in the House and the Senate? What role did you play in all that?
None.
There is nothing illegal about Jon Husted pushing for legislation or talking to supporters of a bill. And Husted says he supported the bailout to preserve a power source that produces zero carbon emissions. Andy Chow, what he said back in December of 2021 does not jive with what was in those text messages.
Like you said, Mike, there wasn't anything illegal. There's nothing wrongdoing that's been suggested in those text messages, but we've learned a couple of things through those text messages that Jon Husted was indeed working to help pass HB6, but not only supporting HB6 and supporting the nuclear bailout that came from that bill, but pushing for it to be longer. There was always this conversation of, is it going to be 7 years? Is it going to be 10 years? We now know, at least by reading those text messages, that Jon Husted was pushing for a 10-year bailout, which at that point, it was $150 million a year coming from ratepayers' electric bills. It was only going to last 7 years. Looks like he was pushing for 10.
Laura Bischoff, you've covered this extensively. You were the first to report on these text messages. Jon Husted seemed reluctant to comment on this case during the height of the scandal. Is there any indication that he or anyone else in the DeWine administration, the governor, is being looked at by investigators?
Well, not. I mean, I'm not. Yep. I'm not on that team, so I don't know. But you know, it's interesting because the DeWine administration, both the governor and lieutenant governor, have said repeatedly, that they have been advocating for nuclear power, that it's part of the portfolio of clean energy that Ohio has, and that it was important to keep those plants open and operating. It's kind of a mixed message, though, when you ask, what was your role? None, and yet the text messages show otherwise.
Terry Casey, we'll talk about this climate bill in a minute. Joe Biden was actively involved in lobbying for that bill and probably talking to companies like Intel for the CHIPS bill. Why not just say, you know what, I was for this bill for all the reasons that Laura just mentioned. It's good for the environment, it's good for Ohio, it's good for jobs. Why say that I didn't play a role in it?
Well, part of it, if you're a politician, you don't want to be twisted into guilt by association by associating yourself too much, because what Householder was doing and what he's going to face in federal court is serious criminal thing. If you turn the clock back to the summer of 2018, both Mike DeWine and Democrat Rich Cordray were supportive of keeping the nuclear plants operating. So it was a bipartisan, and what originally finally passed in the legislature had bipartisan support. And in fact, Larry Householder never would have been speaker without the key Democrat votes. So clearly, in a year of politics, you don't want to sharpen the knives that people might use against you, so maybe you're overly cautious.
But this makes him a little bit vulnerable now. He had one story then and another story then and now, depending on...
But other than us, I don't know that anybody else is really going to be talking about it. And again...
Joe Mas, will other people be talking about it?
I think so. And as a consumer, I tell you what my concern is. It has nothing to do, because Terry is correct. I think that there was bipartisan support in keeping the nuclear power plants going. The Union of Concerned Scientists has clearly said that we need to rely on nuclear power until such time as we can go straight into renewables. The issue is, why then say that you weren't supporting it as a consumer? Is it because you were more involved in the darker side of this whole story and you want to remain at arm's length? And that's the concern. That's when it begins to smell.
You know, this is an enormous case. I mean, House Bill 6, it was a $1.4 billion bailout, involved 4.5 million customers across the state, not just FirstEnergy's customers. This was a fee that was going to be applied to everybody's monthly bill. A Fortune 500 company that's based in Akron, $60 million in bribes. I mean, it's just stunning how big this case is. And I'm curious to see, I mean, it's not going to go to trial till January, so it's probably not going to have too much chatter on the campaign trail. But I think that there's an opportunity to try to explain it to the customers and to the readers and the listeners.
It has been quiet. I mean, Sam Randazzo has been accused by FirstEnergy of accepting bribes from the company. Now, we haven't really heard his side of the story yet because he hasn't been charged with anything yet. Andy.
Yeah, Sam Randazzo, former chair of the PUCO, in the deferred prosecution that FirstEnergy agreed to, they said that they bribed Randazzo for preferential treatment during his leadership on the PUCO. The other thing about all this, and then the Husted aspect of everything, is that there were so many different players at the State House fighting for HB 6, fighting against HB 6. When you talk to those advocates now who are fighting against HB 6, they say things like these text messages reveal just how much opposition they faced from the other side that they didn't even know about. They didn't even realize that somebody like John Husted was not only fighting for HB 6, but fighting for a longer 10-year bailout.
I do think once it goes to trial, it's just going to be an avalanche of information that we don't know. I just think if you look, I was talking to my colleague down at the Cincinnati Enquirer, Sherry Coolidge, who covered the Sittenfeld case, the former Cincinnati city council member, and she's been covering City Hall for like more than 10 years, and she sat through that trial and she said she was floored by how much information she had no idea was going on.
Yeah, you're pulling back the curtain, and I think that's what a lot of people are wondering, what other information's out there.
We don't know yet what the feds really have, because the Sittenfeld case, they had an informant and they had tape, and that makes it different. We don't know in this case what they really have, though obviously Householder has two of his top lieutenants, the one key lieutenant who's already pled guilty. So Householder's got a problem, but again, until the court plays out.
But it's not like we need to know this information now. We're going to be electing the governor and lieutenant governor in 90 days, Joe. Why can't, what is the obligation? I know they want to protect the case and protect the innocent who have not been charged yet. But doesn't the voter have a right to know before they cast a vote what's going on here?
Yeah, and this is where you would say, I rest my case, because, it's the timing is not good, but at the same time, all the information, as Terry says, won't be available to us for a while yet, and it'd be nice to know, but I guess that's nothing new in elections, nothing new in politics.
And especially when we had the COVID period, which delayed court trials for a year and a half, or 2 years.
Okay, let's get to our next topic. Two large congressional spending bills could have a big impact on Ohio's future. First, the CHIPS Act. Ohio political and business leaders pressed hard for that bill that grants $52 billion to computer chip manufacturers. Chief among them for Ohio is Intel, which says it needs the money to fulfill its promise of a $100 billion chip factory complex in New Albany. This week, President Biden signed the bill into law and promised it would help the United States lead the world in advanced chip manufacturing.
And to be clear, this law is not handing out blank checks to companies. Today, I'm ordering my administration to be laser focused on the guardrails that will protect taxpayers' dollars. It means making sure that companies partner with community colleges and technical schools to offer training and apprenticeship programs and work with small and minority-owned businesses. We'll have the power to take back any federal funding if companies don't meet these commitments required by the bill.
Terry Casey, can Intel live up to all those commitments?
Well, it kind of depends which yardstick are you using, because I think at the state and the local level, Most of those are incremental, dependent upon how many people they hire, how much money they get back, and a lot of it's also for infrastructure. But the federal money, we haven't seen all the details of how the money is going to be handed out, because as we saw under things like Solyndra, they passed out money to solar people, and then they went bankrupt and all the federal money was lost. So I hope it all works out well, because I think the Intel thing is not just going to be huge, but super huge for Central Ohio.
No, I really, I have little doubt that Intel will at least try to keep those commitments. And that's not an unusual thing, by the way. And we have seen, actually, with the experience of Honda, now that Honda has been in for so many years, that money does spread around, and that there are educational and entry-level programs for people to go there. I know I've represented a number of clients who have done that.
State officials still optimistic. They must be, extremely pleased that this thing passed and signed into law before the summer. Now they can have the groundbreaking, Laura.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because Intel had kind of a rough financial report just recently. Their sales have been down for like 8 straight quarters. Their revenues are $11 billion less than expected, that's kind of an eye-popping number, but they have big numbers overall. Yeah. But I do think that the plants and the project in New Albany, that's a long-term play to build capacity. And so even if they're impacted on the short term, I still think that they'll stick with their capacity building.
The question is, do shareholders of Intel buy into this long-term strategy that its CEO is now pursuing? It's a 3 to 5 year strategy. Build these plants, innovate, make these chips here in the United States and Europe as well.
That was the big sales pitch. That's why Republicans and Democrats were all rallying behind the CHIPS Act. It wasn't because of necessarily the initial $20 billion investment that was already going to happen here. It's the future next 4 phases, other installments of $20 billion. You already see the European Union heavily subsidizing chip manufacturing. China's been doing that for years and years. America wanted to compete, and they say this is the way to do it.
Here are the European numbers. The European Union is giving $45 billion to Intel. Italy, its deal with Intel, according to Reuters, is Italy is ready to pay as much as 40% of Intel's investment in that country. Ours is chump change compared to those guys, Joe.
Yeah, I tell you, but the inspiration behind this whole thing, notwithstanding what Intel had said a few weeks ago about having to go to Asia if chips didn't pass, is that there is some degree of instability with respect to Taiwan, certainly with respect to China. China's support of Russia still is of concern. So, yeah, the European Union is going to come in, and we're going to come in.
And back to Central Ohio, if you look at what happened in Austin, Texas, a decade or so, when Dell started doing what they did, it attracted more and more tech people and companies, and I think that has the chance to happen here in Central Ohio, that we could become the next Austin, a mini Silicon Valley, and the Midwest needs that.
But you mentioned Solyndra. The other company we remember is Foxconn in Wisconsin, $3 billion in state subsidies, and they never lived up to there's always a risk.
Yeah, but in Ohio, I'm not sure about Wisconsin, a lot of that is conditional. You get income tax rebates depending on how many people you hire. If you don't hire as many people, you don't get as much money back.
All right, our next topic, the other bill before Congress, could affect how Ohioans heat their homes, drive to work, and whether we see intense floods or droughts in the decades to come. It's the climate spending bill, now before the House. The House was debating it as we speak this afternoon. After the Senate passed it earlier this week, Ohio environmental activists praised the bill. Ohio and natural gas company executives warn it could restrict production and lead to higher prices. Laura Bischoff, the state has always been slower than other states to embrace renewables. Will this bill speed up our process of endorsing these forms of energy?
You're right. I think that the lawmakers in the House and Senate have been very reluctant and very kind of skeptical of subsidies and things that might put the thumb on the scale for one technology over another. And also, I think it kind of shows the power of the utilities in lobbying in the legislature. But this is at the federal level, and it's a package that's got stuff for everybody: manufacturers, environmentalists, consumers. So, we'll see how it plays out in Ohio.
Is there one area, Andy, where Ohioans think they could benefit the most from this? Is it electric cars? Is it solar? Is it wind? Do we have one area?
I think when you ask policymakers what they think Ohio is really going to benefit from is the manufacturing side. So there are tax credits to make the wind turbines, to make the solar panels, to manufacture the electric vehicles. There's going to be a lot of federal money pumped into that industry. Sherrod Brown has said that that's going to be a big part of this, to really pump up manufacturing in Ohio to support those renewable energy industries.
Like the Intel deal, Joe, this is, years down the road, but we still got to heat our homes now and drive our cars now. Are we going to see higher prices? Are we going to sacrifice fossil fuel in the short term for the long-term gain?
Boy, excellent question. And because I hate to really see this commitment to talking about this bill as it being anti-inflation. I think when you throw money into anything, I think there does have an inflationary effect. But the bill also has support for a number of consumer related issues and support for Medicare and
drug
for
negotiations,
the drug negotiation. Yeah. So it is, I think, ultimately going to work in favor of the consumer. But again, as a pure pseudo-intellectual, I'm a little concerned about the expectations concerning inflation in and of itself.
And I want to second what Joe just said. This isn't really going to solve anything short-term or medium-term on inflation right now. But one of the things, even the New York Times this past week detailed for most of the middle class, they can't afford to buy an electric car, and then there's a limit on how much you can spend on a car, and then hybrid cars are excluded. There's a lot of questions, and then the Wall Street Journal this past week detailed the production on lithium production and how the supplies are overseas in countries like South America that aren't very friendly or aren't very reliable. So it all sounds good on paper. The question is, how does it really work?
They want to build battery factories here. That's one of the Honda is considering a battery factory somewhere in Ohio, according to this reports after this bill was signed.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of questions about if you are able to ramp up manufacturing and scale up the industry, does that also bring down prices for consumers? And then with this Inflation Act, it also brings consumer credits, rebate programs to help make it more affordable to install solar panels on your house or to install other efficiency measures too.
And one surprising thing, you even get some support if you buy a used electric car. It's not just the new electric cars. So I think that's something that consumers can take advantage of.
Laura, there's the utilities, the legislature and policymakers in Ohio have not been as friendly to renewable energy projects as they have been to, say, fracking. For instance, they allow local governments, counties to put restrictions on wind and solar farms, but you can frack anywhere you want, according to state law. If the market changes, will the legislature have to change how it views these projects now, if there's a demand for wind and solar farms?
Maybe. I think also if, as you see, like these battery factories get up and running and electric car production in Ohio and the rest of it, once there's more of a foothold for Ohio, I think we might see a shift in the legislature.
Does this prompt, Terry, some of these companies are already involved in solar and wind, but does it prompt like an AEP or a First Energy to invest more in these themselves?
Well, they might, but they got to look at the economics and does it work? And in the most recent past few months, Europe suddenly discovered, Spain is telling people they can't run air conditioners because in Europe they shut down too quickly nuclear and coal plants, and now suddenly they can't run it. And Andy did a good piece on WOSU Radio. He noted in California there's this little detail that most people don't think about called base load. And the wind doesn't, and the sun doesn't do very much at nighttime and in winter in parts of the state. So all this sounds good on paper. The question is, how do you make it work?
And I talked to the natural gas industry here in Ohio, and if you look at the European countries like Germany, they really relied on natural gas to be that bridge resource to help move towards things like solar and wind. But they say that there still should be a space in Ohio to develop natural gas to help in that effort.
Well, that's good news for the fracking industry in Ohio, at least in the near term. All right, our last topic, the shadow of former President Trump continues to loom over the race for U.S. Senate here in Ohio. This week, it was the FBI unannounced search of Trump's Florida estate. J.D. Vance echoed many Republican voices and tweeted the raid was disgraceful and unprecedented. He wrote, "The question becomes what comes next. We either have a republic or we don't. If we do, the people who have politicized the FBI in recent years will face investigation and prosecution." Ryan said less on Twitter. He poked fun at Vance for an upcoming event with potential Trump rival Ron DeSantis, and he asked J.D. Vance if there was trouble in Mar-a-Lago. Joe Mas, we're just now learning the details of this raid, search, whatever you want to call it. Did these guys get out a little ahead of their skis before they knew all the facts in condemning or praising this raid?
Oh, absolutely. But I think they felt compelled to do that because the overheated political environment that we happen to be living in. And if you pay attention, and again, you know, I'm a lawyer, yes, and I'm a criminal defense attorney. If you pay attention to the type of responses, they show an incredible amount of ignorance with respect to how it is that law enforcement operates. I think the most popular commentary is, if they can do this to an ex-president, they can do it to you. Well, yeah, guess what? They can do it to you, and they do it to you if there is probable cause for them to go into your house and look for something illegal.
We saw this week in Ohio, perhaps the consequences of overheated rhetoric. This guy went to the FBI office in Cincinnati and tried to attack them with a nail gun and an semi-automatic rifle.
Right, and you know, I've been to that FBI Cincinnati office. It's a fortress, so you know, kind of picked the wrong building. But it doesn't mean that there might not be further attacks elsewhere. I do think it's a harbinger of something to come.
And I want to second what Joe said about overheated rhetoric on both sides, and also remind people for a little bit of history. In 2016, there was a certain candidate for president, Hillary, and the Democrats who thought the FBI director was out of control in certain things he was doing and the timing of it. So this is the kind of issue that's happened on both sides in the past, and it is a delicate balance. And I think, well, from what little's been released so far today, we do want to know what was behind the affidavit submitted to the federal magistrate that allowed the search. So there's still lots to learn, and sometimes it's good to wait till you get all the information before you comment.
But I'm not sure that they're going to release the affidavit. I think they're going to release the warrant, but the attached affidavit, which I understand is something like 30 pages long, that I'm not sure we're ever going to see that.
Not unless it goes to trial or at some point like that. And this goes to my earlier.
Then the evidence will come
out. And this goes to my earlier question about HB6. Shouldn't we know? But they have to protect the investigation.
And it just kind of reminds me that we have so much time until November. So the big political question today, we might even forget in a few weeks. And like you said, there's just so much more information coming out. And I think what we're starting to see from these campaigns is picking and choosing when they choose to respond, when to not respond, and what does that mean for them politically.
Terry Casey, J.D. Vance fully embraced Donald Trump this week and his stance on this raid, as they call it, fundraised off of it. He's not giving up on Donald Trump now that he doesn't have to worry about Josh Mandel and Jane Timken and Mike Gibbons anymore.
Well, the campaign's obviously heating up because he started some media, particularly in the Cleveland, Youngstown markets. And it'll be interesting. We haven't had any independent polls since May in this race, and be interested to see where it's at. And also, Ryan has spent $18 million so far, so he's obviously close, maybe slightly ahead, maybe slightly behind. But we're going to be talking on this show a lot more about the Senate race because it's going to heat up and it's going to be one of the big ones in the nation.
Yeah, the Trump support has nothing to do with Trump himself. I think the Trump support has to do with the Trump supporters, and he needs to carry out that narrative.
Does Tim Ryan? He's been sort of courting Trump supporters, maybe the lukewarm Trump supporters, the ones who maybe voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012 and then voted for Trump in 2016 and 20. He can't really condemn Donald Trump too much, can he, or can he?
He wants to win back those Trump supporters. He wants the ones who were in the Democratic camp, and then Trump made an appeal to the forgotten person or whatever. And I think that he's kind of walking a tightrope, but it's going to be interesting to see if it works. He's not going to wade into the culture wars. He's going to focus on workers and economic freedom, I think is what he's saying. So.
Yeah.
I think that is in fact the correct mix for Democrats going forward. And in the Pennsylvania race for the Senate, you've got a similar candidate doing doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I think Tim Ryan doesn't have a problem attacking Donald Trump at times, as long as he's not attacking the issues that he thinks the supporters who could come his way might be supportive of.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shot. Joe Moss, you're up first.
And it's actually what you mentioned about the man trying to break into the FBI office. This was a direct result of this overheated environment that we have been talking about. But this is based on ignorance and based on irresponsible reporting by certain media outlets. Now, media outlets need to act more responsibly and remember that motivating violence is a sin against humanity.
Sorry.
You said you didn't want to talk about abortion, but I'm going to bring it up here because there was a lot of pressure this past week on some prosecutors like Gary Tyack to say they won't ever prosecute any case related to abortion. But if they're smart, like the Democrat women prosecutors in Akron and Toledo did, they haven't made such a position because officials like Zach Klein who make such statements need to be careful because there's provisions in the Ohio Constitution and the Ohio Revised Code for removal if you aren't doing your job.
Andy.
Ohio lawmakers introduced a bipartisan bill that would retroactively grant a reprieve, release if future bills were to reform the criminal justice system. Seems to be a lot of support behind it. It might be paving the way for future bills to reform the system.
And Laura.
Hey, I just wanted to do a shout out to the Columbus Dispatch in summer internship class. They are finishing up, and congratulations, good job. And keep in mind the old newsroom adage, which is, if your mother says she loves you, check it out.
Check it out. Absolutely. Absolutely check it out. My prediction is, Terry mentioned all the ads running in the Youngstown area. Ron DeSantis is campaigning with J.D. Vance in the Youngstown area. Youngstown area is Tim Ryan's home turf. That will be ground zero in this U.S. Senate race. I think that will be the key part of the state. If Vance wins big there, it could be over for Tim Ryan. If Ryan holds his own, even wins there, it's good news for him. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Watch every show on demand at our website, WOSU.org, and on the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.